This is The Convergence.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of The Convergence, the podcast where every week we talk about the convergence of sustainability and Web 3.0. Today, I have a great guest that I had the opportunity to meet. Was it just like 2 weeks ago, right? I mean, Nima, you and I just met like 2 weeks ago. But Nima is an attorney. And Nima, I'm going to let you pronounce your last name. I should have asked you ahead of time. I got it right the other night, though. So
you did. You got it right.
Is it Sadeghian?
It's Sadeghian. It's Sadeghian in the regular pronouncement, but the real way you say it is Sadeghian. It's very hard for
English speakers, Western speakers to say that.
For Western speakers,
Sadeghian, I can get that one down. It'll just take me a little bit of time, but welcome to the show.
Sure, yeah.
We talked a lot about the law. I had you as a guest at an event that I did with Venture Cafe, which is a global group that meets up every week for drinks and talks about really relevant topics. And I had you on that panel to talk about the law and what's happening with the law now with the emergence of blockchain. And there's so much, so many areas that there's not really any case law on. So maybe, Nima, you could talk a little bit about your background. You came from the fashion industry, right?
Right. So where my passion lies and where I see myself being the biggest change maker is in fashion, because simply put, the fashion industry has the biggest impact on redistributing wealth back to nations. And so I grew up as a teenager working in the fashion industry from a fairly young age. A neighbor of mine inspired me to get into fashion. He was actually a real estate developer and a tech entrepreneur. But at the same time, he met Daymond John when I was about 14. So basically at the stage where the first fashion company ever was invested in by a tech company, Samsung. And so Samsung basically had the most sophisticated distribution channels at the time for any type of company to go global overnight, right? So today there's a lot more potential for companies to go global, but there also is a lot more competition in fashion, and also a lot of more challenges, but also opportunities. So
yeah, for sure. So how did you make this transition from fashion to law? It doesn't seem like the two connect together right at first.
Right. So I was more of always an entrepreneur, and I always tried to get involved in the metaverse, believe it or not. Okay. For 13 years now, I've been trying to get into the metaverse. Before I went to law school, even, during my younger years, I was negotiating with the likes of big tech companies on licensing deals for 3D stereoscopic holographic tablets. And at the time, it was rejected because it wasn't a feasible concept, because there wasn't enough designers. There wasn't enough 3D designers that can scale such a platform and such an app initiative.
Yeah,
and we've learned that there's many app stores that have come and gone, that there's been many type of coding platforms that have shown strengths but also shown weaknesses that have not been sustainable over time. And like most software projects, I always say they take 3 to maybe 10 companies to become a finalized product, to become a product delivered to consumers. So the process of merger and acquisition, data rights, data use, data transfer, when it comes to metaverse, is still, it's like you said, it's still an undeveloped frontier on the legal standpoint. And so we're seeing history in the making. We're seeing people, countries declare their data use and their data privacy rights, declare their rights in space, so that they can now they privatize their own internet, privatize their own businesses, and ultimately build a stronger democracy.
That's a really good point. And I think, so what I think that you said there that really resonated with me is that the reality is that it does take a long time to bring these type of products to market. It takes a long time to bring any product to market. But what you're seeing, the iterations of things that you're seeing today that are hitting the market are really from 2018, 2019 development roadmaps. So it's a little behind. And listen, I've had lots of great guests on this show. Some of them are developers in the blockchain, and they're like, everything that's in the news is like so old school yesterday because it's 4 years back in the development cycle. I think the other thing that you have to see, and this is something as an angel investor, I've actively started to pursue opportunities in the blockchain that failed. Why? Well, I was on a call yesterday with a company that had an absolutely brilliant, innovative idea that they launched out in 2018, could completely revolutionize one of the biggest industries in the world. And they had zero traction, 100% resistance. Nobody understood blockchain. Big companies didn't understand it. Little companies didn't understand it. And eventually they just packed up their suitcases and said, we're done, and left it. Now I'm looking at that. I'm going online. I'm asking people in my network, what are these abandoned technologies and where are they? Because they could be the catalyst for what comes next, which is reviving some of these old things. So if you're an angel investor out there with blockchain and crypto things in your portfolio that maybe have failed, you might want to start looking at that again because there is a development cycle now that has started to really happen. And there's a demand for these products like there hasn't been before. I think also to your point, the law has not caught up with that.
The law has definitely not caught up because the popular opinion hasn't caught up yet. The public doesn't yet know what this means for their future. And so governments can't be too agile or too proactive in a sense, because they can be looked at as radical. They could be looked at as unorthodox and untraditional and possibly risky. And that would make major investors of certain countries depart. And that's something that governments definitely don't want. So the public policy, in every industry, it comes down to let's meet the market. Let's meet the market where it should be. And let's do a reverse engineering of what should happen so that we maintain certain controls. And I'm pretty sure that there's going to be good KYC, there's going to be good security, information security policy in about 5 years. So the companies that are working today on the new innovations for tomorrow, we have not yet heard of, unfortunately. But we have a lot to hear about. We have a lot to hear about for sure.
Yeah, and I just want to say real quick, KYC, know your customer, right?
Know your customer. Know your customer. It's risky business dealing with just anyone in Web3. More people are out to get you than they're out to help you.
That's really true. And I think that's important in looking for a development firm. You had a chance to meet Ryan, who's been a guest on my show as well, and is one of the sponsors of this show. This is a team that has 50 people all around the world and has been doing this for, 5 or 6 years. If somebody, it's sort of like during the storm season in Louisiana, there's lots of people that become contractors overnight, right? It's like they see an opportunity, they own a pickup truck and a couple of hammers, and they show up and they're like, we're here to do work. No, I think I really want the guy who existed before this became a thing. And it has that sort of legacy that goes on with that. I think that's really important in understanding if you have a project.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, if you've got a project, make sure that you've got to vet these people out, right? You really have to make sure that the people that you're working with are true, because there is fraud out there. I mean, even though people say blockchain is hack proof and your identity can't be, let's be honest, nothing is that. Maybe there's things that are coming down the pipeline, but it's not there yet today. So how do you see what the law that you practice right now? Is it mostly around the formation of blockchain contracts? Is it advising? Give me some examples of how that sort of works right now. And it's lawtonomics.com, right? Or is that the site?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Lawtonomics is our company. We are a global law firm and advisory in everything Web3. So basically, I started out my career, I wasn't always working in a law firm setting. After law school, I graduated law school at 23. I started working in financial investigations. So I worked for a firm that prosecuted Bernie Madoff and other high-profile white-collar investigations that involved a lot of wire fraud, a lot of e-check transfers, a lot of internet-based dark web activities, commerce-based activities in the dark web involving cryptocurrency. So following, in a sense, the old saying, following the money is where it's at. So you got to follow the crypto, and you got to follow it well, and you'll be amazed at what you can find out just with the right algorithm now in the blockchain. So it's going to help a lot. I mean, in the past, I was very frustrated as an attorney in financial crimes because there was so much there were so many crimes that would not go prosecuted. So the market's not ready to deal with a lot of the KYC solutions. But here's the positive note. A lot of Treasury officials that have a lot of experience in digital investigations got together with Coinbase, with TRM Labs, with Dapper Labs, with a lot of major players in Web3, and they said we need to create a unified KYC solution. So they created something called chain abuse. It's going to provide KYC to the masses. So then we can do a lot more commerce. We can do a lot more things that we could never have done because we had to scale a sanctions program, a compliance program, some very complicated information security policies. And all of that can be fixed if there's just the right KYC for all, right? Yeah. So as soon as chain abuse takes form, I think a lot of companies are going to take form as well and really dominate KYC and help it.
So the legitimate companies obviously want to be, to know your customer. They want transparency into the transaction, and it's going to be a little bit more of the darker web kind of stuff that sort of gets worked out of the equation, I guess, is what we're trying to say.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question on this, Nima. I don't know if you've looked at this at all. Have you seen this this airdrop situation that's happened here in the last couple of days, where a law firm is now airdropping legal documents? Have you heard about this? Have you seen this?
Yeah, I heard about it. Yeah. I'm quite excited about it. It's
I put it up on my other screen. Essentially, they tracked them down by their wallet addresses, not knowing who they were, so they couldn't essentially send the legal documentation to them, right? They couldn't. I don't know if it was a cease and desist or what it was. They couldn't do that, so they just airdropped an NFT into their wallet. And this is something that's interesting. If you use a product like Coinbase, and without disclosing any of my information, I'm going to hold up my screen here, but here you go. Hey, if you want to send me crypto, feel free. But just my Coinbase wallet account, you can see in here, here's my NFTs. I own a lot of Jay Pierce stuff because Jay Pierce has a new drop coming out. I know that he's awarding the pass holders. So I have a lot of Jay Pierce in here that I've been buying.
Nice.
But look at this.
Nice.
These other ones are not NFTs that I purchased. They're NFT ads. Somebody got my wallet address from a transaction and dropped an NFT ad, a GIF ad, right into my wallet. And it's not just one. I mean, here's another one. Oh, this one maybe isn't. Oh, no, there it is. They're literally dropping ads via. So, I mean, the cost, I have to think, is very, very low. And you know that you're going to open. I mean, if somebody drops a new NFT into my wallet, I'm opening it. So you know he got served.
You're going to have to open it to. You're going to have to open it to remove it, right?
Yeah,
before you know what it is.
See what it is. Right. So talk a little bit about that. How do you see that, this idea of airdropping something into a legal document into somebody's wallet like that?
Look, I mean, it all comes down to the facts, right? So I know I hate to be that guy that says depends, but it comes down to the facts. So it's the intent of the parties here. So is it likely that the person saw it? Yeah, because he's visiting his wallet on a frequent basis. Maybe he's visiting his wallet 5 times a week, 3 times a day. And so that's enough metadata to present as evidence to prove intent. Okay, and then if on the alternative, if you try to if you try to serve John Doe, who is maybe an older generation, that's like, his grandkid created a wallet for him, and he's never checked it in a few years, then good luck trying to get proof service through that. Ultimately, service comes down to the medium of expression.
Yeah, and let me just say, I mean, in this case, an exchange, the LCX exchange, was hacked, and $8 million in crypto was stolen and put into this wallet address. So what the law firm Holland and Knight did was they took the legal documents to serve that person who perpetuated that theft and literally just dropped them into the same wallet. So, I mean, I have to assume if the guy, gal, whoever it was, has $8 million in their wallet, they're logging in on occasion to visit that or to move it to other.
Well, let me just say, let me just say one thing here. The U.S. government has done an amazing job learning about crypto, and they have an intricate awards-based system for their sanctions program for reporting from other jurisdictions. So not only are they, watching what's going on in the U.S., they're watching what's going on in other jurisdictions. And let's just say that you want to dot your I's and cross your T's. The U.S. government knows about crypto, so you can't. They have Chainalysis. Chainalysis. Any private person, my law firm subscribes to Chainalysis, and we get new unique insights that we've never been able to get before as a law firm, about white collar activities, about partnership activities, how partnerships dissolve and why, and so Chainalysis, I highly implore, if someone wants to understand more about financial investigations, just start there. Chainalysis.
I'm going to check that out because it's an interesting Chainalysis. Okay, yeah, just exactly like it's spelled, chain and analysis. Okay, so it's a analytics. Very interesting. That makes a lot of sense. So what do you see the future is here? Like, where is this go? I guess let's ask, where in the cycle are we, right? Because there's always this sort of early adopter, then there's the masses that take it, then it becomes really common. Where do you feel like we are in this cycle? I mean, it's been going on now for, almost 10 years. I mean, this is the idea of crypto and blockchain contracts. I don't think there was much traction the first 5, at least in my universe, there wasn't. But what are your thoughts, Nima, on where's things going?
Okay, so what I would say is this. I consider myself, after 10 years now of practice, as a lawyer, but first as a tech entrepreneur. And as a tech entrepreneur, I've recognized that there's over 2,000 technologies that are involved in this equation called Web3. What that means is not only blockchain, but the way that blockchain can be used in different AIs. And AIs take many forms. There's natural language processing, there's sentiment analysis, there's expert-based systems, there's knowledge trees, there's research trees. So machine learning is just taking its dawn right now. And so it has a lot of consequences, good consequences in business operations, in customer service, value delivery in the customer service process, which ultimately builds stronger brands and happier companies, happier employees. And so I think that the future of bigger companies might be better than it was in the past. I think that companies might be able to provide data rights quite easily with the help of certain Web3 startups, instead of having to hire a lawyer as a lead researcher and scientist of Johnson & Johnson and have your own patent portfolio. Maybe there's a simpler way. Maybe there's a way that you can do it in real time and on a more smaller basis, on a more micro basis. So then you can then license out the technology more readily and in more type of situations. So I think that the future is bright, whichever way you look at it. We're going to see new opportunities in the next few years, for sure.
So what do you think about the market conditions right now? I think so much time is spent when we talk about blockchain, we automatically talk about NFTs and crypto. But I think as this show has shown, that's not, maybe it is a big part. I mean, I think crypto is a big part, but NFT artwork is not going to be a big part of the world that we live in when you take it as a portion. It might be $1 billion industry, but it might be a portion of $1 trillion industry. So what are your thoughts on the current market fluctuations? I mean, I know neither of us are economists. I guess I have to call Michael Moyo and bring him back on the show. My first guest, whenever it was still like 60K a Bitcoin, you know, we had a lot of conversations on things. And one of the things he said, though, is he said, don't look at it from its investment value, look at it from its utility. And I thought that was really important. But what are your thoughts? The market fluctuations, I mean, market is bad today. 21,482 Bitcoin closed that, you know, down from a top of over 60. Yeah, I mean, it's a good buying market, that's for sure. I mean, it's three for one, you know, sale right now. But what are your thoughts on the market conditions and how things are sort of going down?
All right, you want an economist perspective? I'll try my best.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right. And full disclosure, don't take any of this. Don't go make investments.
This is not financial advice, nor is it economic advice, nor is it legal advice. It's just friendly talk. So,
yes.
So basically, this is where we're at today. All right. So from the very basic level, there's a food shortage in the world. Why? Because there's wars going on, and when wars go on, major manufacturers can't open their factories. Workers don't go to work. Major things don't get done. So first of all, the cost of manufacturing food is high right now. Secondly, 40% of our food comes from the LA port, which is, you know, California has the highest gas prices right now. So the transportation costs of those increased priced goods is now a lot more, and it's translated to the consumer. People are in a spending halt because their basic living expenses are higher than they've ever been in the past few years, and they didn't plan for it, and no one did because of COVID. So that's one of the major problems right now. And then I think that tech stocks are being highly undervalued at every respect in every way because of such an environment. So it is a buying environment right now. I highly think so. So anyone that's speculating and buying today, I think that they'll be highly rewarded.
I agree, and I have to admit it's
and I don't mean to say that in a detached way, because I really sympathize with the problem here. It's a vicious cycle, Derrick. It's a vicious cycle. It's like the more people, the higher their cost of living, the less they think about their short-term future, and ultimately their short-term investment decisions. And the NFT market has so much potential right now. It's at a point where it has momentum. And the NFT, where I see NFTs going in 5 years, 10 years from now, to be brief, is it'll be our resume of life of sorts, and we'll be able to disclose certain things to people selectively in a very efficient way. So how I send a personal or professional CV, instead of doing that, instead of having to talk 5 minutes about my background, you'll see I've been involved in 20 projects in the past 10 years. And then you'll be like, hey, you'll approach me in the right way, in the right context, and you'll say, this is what I want to do with you. And I'm confident in our relationship because of your track record. Conversely, if you haven't done anything in the past 20 years, then instead of wasting any time or effort or resources, you guys come to a faster understanding of, your differences and your goals. And then you move on to what's important.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. So I think there's the opportunity that has been developed by the market conditions that there are today, but also, this is sort of a new frontier. And I would say in a lot of senses, you're still really early on in where the opportunity is if you are looking at trying to get into these markets.
So I want to talk with you for a few moments about Evergreen Carbon Credits, one of the sponsors of this show. I started working with Evergreen when I was telling a friend of mine who's involved with that company about my efforts to try to learn more about blockchain, NFTs, crypto, all the things in this space. And he showed me Evergreen. Evergreen was a really unique solution. I've looked at carbon credits in the past. I've been in the sustainability industry for almost 15 years. I understood what they were. You were buying an offset to offset the carbon footprint that you or your company has. But I also understood the challenges with that. They're sold in very, very large blocks, and then people break those blocks up and try to sell individual credits or small clusters of credits to businesses. And that creates some room for fraud, for people to not be up and up on what that project is, if that carbon credit is real. And there's challenges with that. And you can Google it right now and find there's a big case in Europe going on about fraudulent carbon credits. But what Evergreen did, I thought, was really unique. They took this idea of NFTs and they took blocks of carbon credits and broke those things down into tens of thousands or even millions of individual carbon credits. They can actually fraction those even out to a tenth of a carbon credit if they needed to. And they were able to then create a smart contract around that carbon credit so that you can track it back to its origin. You can find out what project it was associated with, but you are also guaranteed that the carbon credits you're getting from Evergreen are the real deal. You get that certificate, you get that certification that only the blockchain can do. So that's why it made sense for them to come on as a sponsor of this show. We're talking about all this new technology, and with new technology comes higher energy usages in some senses. And Evergreen is here to help offset that. If you want to look to maybe improve your image in the marketplace, maybe you're looking to offset some of your carbon footprint, not even just for your image, but actually for the sake of the planet, head on over to evergreencarboncredits.com and check out what they do. You can buy credits for as little as $11, and you'll get the certificate and the NFT that you can put in your wallet that shows that you've actually made that contribution. And that money, particularly right now with the projects they're working on, is going to reforestation in the Amazon. I think that's something we can all really get behind, particularly when we understand that the environment, the climate we're all connected to it. It doesn't matter if we're putting off emissions here in the US or if it's happening in Mexico. It all contributes to the same global problem. So why not be part of a global solution with Evergreen Carbon Credits?
Nima, in closing, tell us a little bit about what are your customers? How do we contact you? All of those kind of things. What do you look for? What's sort of a good engagement for you?
Sure. So Lawtonomics is a general counseling firm. We provide general counseling services in the Web3 landscape. So anything from a blockchain or NFT project to an AI or robotics project. Robotics can take a hardware form or a software form. There's different type of AIs, and they require different grades of regulation based on the level of autonomy in them and the risk that they provide to the consumers ultimately. There's a lot of federal agencies that I represented clients in front of, from the SEC to the FTC. I can represent clients in front of FinHub in the financial innovation context when it comes to liquidity pools, staking, and the future of that type of activity now that New York's passed regulation. We can talk about DAOs, DAO formation. I mean, to what extent an algorithm can be laid out on paper, and to what extent you as a promoter of that algorithm or agents of the company can be held liable. So it's important in the new age, in this new interactive media age, interactive live content age, live video age, where we're always on live in one platform or another.
Yeah.
It's really important that we understand our brand's purpose and other brands' purposes and clearly delineate what we do and don't do as an organization. And it's okay to be different than other organizations. There's a type of organization for everyone, but we need to identify what's good for us.
Yeah, and that's so funny because as somebody who goes out and does COO type consulting, that I've been barking up that tree forever. It's like, what type of business are you? Are you a sales or an operations organization? What's your secondary business? Are you a real estate holdings company, or do you sell burgers? If anybody who knows anything about McDonald's, more of McDonald's revenue comes from rent collection than does from selling burgers. Think about
You're
that.
right.
They're a real estate enterprise that just happens to sell burgers. Like, and their CFO, there's actually a statement out there from their CFO one time saying just that. He's like, we're a real estate company. Yeah, burgers are a great way for our tenants to pay rent.
This is a great point. Wow. Derrick, you're bringing up a great point here, because now we're going to start seeing the future of smart cities. And smart cities mean a lot of things. It means real estate combined with an IT framework. And that IT framework can have internal or external mechanisms. It can have internal or external DAOs. Those DAOs can interact with each other. Look, Derrick, we're right at the beginning of the future here. I'm talking to the cities and municipalities of US and abroad, and they're still talking about how to respond to certain emails from certain DAOs. So we need to cross our I's and dot our T's in every communication. This is uncharted territory, so we need to be effective communicators. Yeah. This is the key.
I think everybody likes to say that the pace of business is really, really fast, but anybody who's ever done business knows that it takes time. Like it's just, at least from the perspective of the people who are affected, it always seems like it takes a very long amount of time. So there is a patience factor in this thing too. And I think particularly the case law stuff, I'm still a little bit, I'm making an investment today in a blockchain company, and I'm very, very cautious with my investment. And the reason I'm very cautious is because there isn't a lot of case law. There's a reason that so many companies form in Delaware, and it's because there's great case law there. It's very corporate centric. You can Google it and find out how they're going to rule against you or for you. Well, it does not work in this case. So you have to be. One of my friends just texted me. He's like, I'm going to make an investment in this blockchain company. What do you think I should do? And I'm like, whatever you're thinking of doing, do less. And that's no knock to the technology. It's just you can't go all in at this point, not because the technology isn't coming, but because the law and the regulatory environment has to catch up with it.
It has to catch up. Lawyers, the purpose of lawyers at the end of the day is to minimize the number of disputes. There's millions of disputes that are possible in business. Lawyers can make millions happen like to a few thousand, bring it down to a few thousand. And those few thousand disputes can be, you can minimize a lot of those with smart contracts. And then you're at a point where you can put your hand around something and make a real decision.
Yeah. I mean, how many cases a year are two different parties, defendant and plaintiff, read a contract and say, here's what it says. And both of them are full no believing what they believe. And both of them disagree with it.
But that's why arbitration exists. Arbitration is so popular. It's a paid service that expedites the court process on common type of disputes to keep the contract intact, so that you never have to end up in a situation that you wait too long that it kills the business. So arbitration exists for that reason. And I think arbitration will become a lot more innovative in the future. So there'll be a lot more solutions in Web3 for that.
I even think about some of the cash I've raised in the past, and I've had arbitrage statements and all sorts of things that were written into these contracts. Baseball arbitrage. If you don't know what baseball arbitrage is, you really should look it up. It's sort of fascinating. I was involved in a baseball arbitrage one time, and it was like, I had to go and read what the heck was going on because the attorneys are talking about this. And I'm like, but all of those things, like a baseball arbitrage, could be solved with the blockchain contract. It's just about clearly defining. I think it's about the.
It's clearly defining a bundle of rights. Clearly defining a bundle of rights.
I'm going to write that down. Clearly defining a bundle of rights, because
for the first time ever, instead of we're relying on a traditional contract on paper, we're relying on the integrity of a system that defines bundles of rights. So for us, we need to create NFTs that define bundles of rights for us. Obviously, there's some bundles of rights we want to give to select parties, like that will improve our situation or our experience, right? But there's certain bundles of rights you don't want everyone or anyone to access, so you should strictly limit them. And if you don't strictly limit them, it can be fatal for your business. So
I hadn't thought about that. Even like policies and procedures. I mean, you could turn these into NFTs that are sort of living, breathing documents that can be updated, but only shared with employees. And you could revoke access to those things, similarly to revoking access to an email address. But it's hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I've struggled with this, like with G Suite, right, with Google's Mail. I've struggled with this in other companies where we terminate somebody and we've revoked their access, but they selected read offline. So now technically they have access on their hard drive every single email, that's ever been sent. And it's like, I don't have a way to revoke that. I can tell them, don't log in there again. Come on, nobody's going to do that. So those are the kind of solutions I think that we get with blockchain. It's really funny because I was wrapping up here like 10 minutes ago, and then we got up on this great tangent that I feel like was so valuable. Let's spend a couple more minutes. I mean, what other areas? I mean, what other things are you seeing? I mean, is there a way? Arbitrary. I mean, is there a way that I mean, I guess, is it a case law problem? Is that what we've got to build case law?
It's not a case law problem. I'll break it down for you in like one more minute, and it'll be for like some good context. So the history of the internet was started because of universities. Universities needed to check on each other and allow faculty to monitor students' IPs before they were able to apply for the USPTO for any of their trademarks or patents or any other type of rights. And that's really the framework that it was held as a sustainable technology for. And the privatized solution of the internet and the history of the private internet has no impact on its future development. But I will say that, all right, conversely and kind of contradictorily, the future of the internet is in privatization now, because regulations allowed for that ever since Virgin Galactic has allowed for private space travel. And how
do you make that connection, Nima? Let me stop you for. How do you make that connection? So Virgin Galactic's ability to travel in space has a direct correlation to our ability to maintain private internet systems. You got to give me a little bit more on that.
Private space travel, it allows for experiences in space. It could be elevated experiences, whether it's an entertainment experience, a travel experience, a dining experience, or all three. And basically, now that the space industry has been privatized, so back to the internet. So the internet was started on the public university framework, and then we built these wires that were shark proof under the ground, and that supported the internet framework that exists today. But the metaverse requires a much larger infrastructure, maybe a 10-fold or 20-fold infrastructure than we currently have right now. Like, in order to support like 10 or more Web3 applications in the future, the amount of data that we're going to need and bandwidth that we're going to need is going to be severely increased. And so if we're paying like $50 to $100 a month for internet right now, imagine how much it's going to cost when we need 5 terabytes or more. And so, simply put, the metaverse's infrastructure is not there yet. And so the space industry is going to be able to fund Web3. The space industry is going to fund Web3. Ultimately, space startups are going to provide opportunities for government funding. We're going after unmanned objects in space. We're going after terrestrial objects. And we're trying to understand the risks that those objects pose to us in the Earth, and we're trying to mitigate those risks from the government's policy standpoint, from the private insurance standpoint, from and from the market investment standpoint. So I'm a general counsel to several space capital groups, like several space VCs in a sense, and they're investing in applications that have elements of Web 2 and elements of Web 3, but ultimately are serving a specific value purpose. They add value to the privatization of the internet and of telecommunications, and ultimately of business value in the intangible space in the metaverse.
So let me see if I can connect the dots. So essentially, what you're saying is, because of the privatization of space travel and the needs of these big companies, that they're going to find ways to privatize aspects of the internet, almost decentralize aspects of the internet, so that they can rely upon that latent bandwidth that's sort of sitting there. Is that sort of what you're thinking, or latent processing power?
Absolutely. That's absolutely right, Derrick. See, like, there's telecommunications lawyers that you have to pay maybe millions of dollars to, like you said, in order to even stay legally compliant with telecommunications laws on the government's framework, because the government's the main provider of support to telecommunications companies, and telecommunications companies operate based on certain grant-based programs that are publicly funded. And so therefore they have to maintain a certain level of distance from any type of, efficiency or control over the entire framework. And so the framework yet is still very young, and so the internet is yet very young. And so there's going to be a lot of software companies and hardware companies that are going to improve that. SpaceX is doing great things right now, and I see a lot of companies complementing what SpaceX is trying to start.
That's amazing. I'm glad we came back to that point, because I think it was really valuable. Nima, thank you so much. Nima Sadeghian.
Thank you for having me, Derrick.
Yeah, and I got your name right that time, Nima Sadeghian. I got it. It's down pat. I got at least I have the Western pronunciation. I'll work on the other. But no, thank you for being here, and thank everybody for tuning into the Convergence Podcast. If you've got questions or ideas for shows, let me know. Hit me up on social. Our social following has been really growing. We also have a great YouTube channel now that all of the interviews that you're catching on the podcast, we also have a version of that video, which means you get to see the beautiful faces and backgrounds, more so the backgrounds and artwork here in my studio. But yeah, Nima, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Folks, you can check out Nima at Lawtonomics.com or find him on LinkedIn, as I did. We connected made some connections and had a lot of conversations by LinkedIn. So Nima Sadeghian, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for listening to The Convergence. If you want more information about the topics you've heard here today, reach out to us at theconvergencepodcast.com.